corporate body, it's very important for you to remember that you are responsible for making sure that the person who is running the organization is qualified to do so. And if at any point the organization changes or grows to a point that it exceeds that person's skills, you either got to help them develop the skills, you got to help them surround themselves with staff that can make up for their weaknesses, or you got to accept that it's time to move on and find somebody else. Because boardsmanship is such a fascinating subject, I've decided to inject some humor. This was Barry's first meeting as chair, and it wasn't going quite as planned. Yeah, I get like 6 little giggles, and that's it. I dare you people to try to go find comics about boardsmanship and tell me what's going to come. All right, if I were to have given all of you a quiz before you came into the room individually and said, what's the #1 responsibility or most important thing that as a board member you do, 85% of you would have said something related to the financial oversight of the agency. And I'll agree, that's one of the most important things. Why is it that we put that one on such a high pedestal? Why is it that that's front of mind for us? Say it again. Because it's a nonprofit. Jared, that's pretty good. He's in accounting. I see that on his badge up here. Because that's the crowd that gets you into trouble, right? I mean, I want you to think about the scandals that have taken place nationally and locally with not-for-profit community service organizations. It almost always has to do with a poor utilization of resources. Okay? So the reason it's front of mind is because that's the stuff that'll get you in the newspaper. That'll get you a reporter on your front desk when you get home and you just pour a glass of wine and you wear your little pink fuzzy slippers. Because y'all have them, I know. And they show up and they want to know what you know about the $50,000 that was unaccounted for from a federal grant that was submitted by the organization. That's the stuff that gets us in trouble, so we put it sort of at the top of the list for importance for us. Related to providing proper financial oversight, it's important for you to materially participate as a board member in the establishment of an annual budget. What do I mean when I say materially participate? So it's the opposite of just letting the staff bring it in and saying, all right, we're rubber stamping that, that's okay. Asking questions about the way that they've come up with the figures for income. Asking questions about how they benchmark the salary information or the benefit information for the staff and so on. Asking questions and offering input and making sure that you're heard and that the budget reflects the actual world that they're operating in for that day. That's what we mean by material participation. So we have to establish a budget. We have to review the organization's progress to the budget throughout the year. And I would argue that you need to do this at every convening of the corporate body. So this is where we said we were going to get money. This is where we said we were going to spend money. This is what we've actually done this year, and these are where our variances are. And then lastly, we've got to question the staff. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later, that's an art, not a science. Right? There's a fine line between micromanagement and then being completely laissez-faire. We got to figure out where that line is. You spent $15 more on office supplies this month. Is probably not the best use of your or the CEO's time. But we're 15% under in compensation. Can you help me understand why? Or the occupancy costs for the facility that we operate in Simpsonville is 20% above what we budgeted. Can you help me understand why? Those are the types of questions that good board members ask. It stopped working. Look at that. There we go. So we talk about managing the resources properly. We also have a responsibility of making sure that resources come into the institution. How are all the ways nonprofit organizations generate? Tell me, shout out for me a couple of ways nonprofits generate resources. Individual donations, events, dues, fees for service, investment, and then maybe it's an endowment or some other type of investment. Keep going. Federal and state contracts, a much more significant part of nonprofit funding than most of you realize. So on and so forth. We can keep going. So, sales. Anybody been asked to buy cookies recently? It's an impressive little workforce the Girl Scouts have, right? Not pick on Girl Scouts, I love the Girl Scouts. So there's a lot of thrift stores. There's a whole lot of different ways that we can bring revenue into an organization. As a board member, it's important for you to do a couple of things: to monitor where those revenues are coming from, And one of the pieces that's critical to you being a good monitor is asking yourself, is the way we're bringing resources in diverse, right? If an organization is financially dependent on one or two sources of income to keep their doors open, is that healthy? No. In the the latter part of the first decade of the century, which was a fancy way of saying like around 2007, some significant changes in the state of South Carolina happened in the social service agencies, meaning specifically DHEC, Department of Mental Health, DAODIS, which is the Department of Alcohol, Drug, and Other Substances, and I forgot one. Anyway, you get it. All those big D-level organizations in the state. So I'm going to take one, and again, lots of organizations that provide direct services in our community, lots of nonprofits were heavily dependent upon contracts with the state in order to operate. In particular, were residential or group homes for teenagers, often in the foster care system, right? So we're talking about, I got a couple of smarter people, so we're talking about like the Children's Shelter, Ellen Highsmith Girls Home, Southeastern Children's Home, Pendleton Place here over in Greenville County, and I know that there are examples in other parts of the state. So basically, the budget changed so that the funding for those group homes reduced by almost 65%, right? And most of those group homes were 80 to 85 to 90% dependent on that money to operate. So let's take XYZ Children's Facility in Anderson, right? They've got an annual budget of $500,000, of which $400,000 comes from the state and state contracts or per diems to take care of the kids. And you get told that your budget's going to reduce by 65% in that $400,000. Do you have a problem? They did have a problem. And a lot of them got in front of it and figured out other ways that they could support the operation of the organization in the face of reducing public dollars that were available. A lot of them didn't, and they went under. Glen Springs Academy, which is formerly Sparkburg Boys Home, they limped along for a couple of years, but they did eventually go under. Epworth Children's Home, Thornwell, both made it, but significantly had to reduce the number of kids that they were able to serve. I use this all as an example to say that if you're an organization that you serve on is dependent on just a couple of different ways to generate revenue, that is not diverse enough to be successful and to grow and to be stable in what has turned out to be an extremely uncertain 10-year economy, right? I'd love to talk more about that. We'll move it on. So monitoring income streams is important, but then also helping the staff identify places that revenue can be brought in or resources can be brought in, and then assisting the staff with the implementation of that strategy or plan. We listed just a minute ago 10, 11, 12 different ways that money can be brought into the organization. If I were to have listed those on that pretend quiz that I didn't give you before you came in, and said which of these are you personally most comfortable participating in, where do you feel that you are most able to help the organization raise money, where would most of you have, what box would most of you have checked? Special event fundraising, right? Most of us are more comfortable selling a ticket to a gala or inviting people to be financially supportive of an event in exchange for a number of tickets than we are simply saying, Jared, will you write a check to this institution and support it? Why is that? Because most of us don't like to raise money, right? And the idea of asking somebody to give of something very personal is difficult. And when we're at least giving them a ticket in return, the ticket may only be worth $25, but there's this illusion that they're actually getting something of equal value back, right? So if 85% of you would have said special event fundraising is where you feel the most comfortable participating in a revenue generation for a nonprofit, and which type of fundraising is the least efficient of those we listed? Special event fundraising. Do we have a problem? Yeah. So part of figuring out where you fit in as a member of a board is identifying how you can best be a service to the institution. And I'm not knocking special events, they're important. But if your organization is financially dependent upon special event fundraising, you've got a problem, right? Because they're not consistent. They are extremely time and resource intensive. And one bad weather event can knock out a third to 2/3 of the revenue if that's the way you're dependent. So where is it that you as board members can best participate and support the institution? I didn't say anything during the meeting, but I don't agree with the rest of the board on this issue. Thank you for laughing. All right.